Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the most magical podcast in the Midwest. That's right, the Magic in the Midwest podcast, starring USA Today bestselling author J.B. Michaels and his more successful wife, Ashley Michaels. And now, your hosts. All right, thank you so much, announcer. Yes, I am J.B. Michaels, and I'm joined here by Ashley Michaels. And we are very excited to produce and show you record for you the 106th Magic in the Midwest podcast, which is just crazy, 106, and there is a ton to talk about. As I'm sure most of you in the Disney fan community will know what we will be talking about, but it's still very exciting to talk about it. Also, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of year. So it's the holiday season, and there are JB books that are perfect for the holiday season, including the Tannenbaum Taylor's series, which can be found online, and it's fantastic, and it's literally every single book in the series has won awards. And they're lovely, great stories to read to your children or have your children read for the holidays. Probably say ages 8 and up, if not a little younger. It depends. Very short chapters, lots of fun. The Tannenbaum Taylors, and then of course next weekend I will be at the Little Traveler on the 2nd and 3rd. Signing books, signing the Christmas Walk Caper, another Christmas magical murder mystery, which is set in Geneva, Illinois. That's the most popular book series that I currently write. Have had lots of success there. So if you want to, please check those out as well. The Mac and Millie Mystery Series. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we have a subscription if you want more content for as little as $3 a month, or just pay $3 and do it for a month. You can listen to all the other content on Magic in the Midwest podcast.bandcamp.com. And you'll get a bunch of great extra content, like over 50 podcasts ready for you. So anyway, so let's get to it. Yes, let's get down to it. And like all of our other podcasts, ladies and gentlemen, we have someone we want to definitely give a shout out to, and someone we are partners with over at Magical Mouse Travel, and that is Emily. Emily over at Magical Mouse Travel will take care of all of your travel needs to and from Disney parks, Universal parks, and pretty much anywhere you want to go. Just like the Visa card. No. But just like, Emily will do a really great job for you. She is our personal friend and travel agent. She has helped us get some amazing accommodations, you guys. The last time we went to Universal for Halloween Horror Nights, she hooked us up with an amazing room with the Royal Pack that overlooked the park. And we didn't really even ask for it. It just happened. So it just happened. That's how great Emily is. She throws in some surprises. She's very responsive and will help you with all of your needs. So please email Emily at magicalmousetravel.com. Also, you can find her on social at Mini Ears and Butterbeers. That's
Isn't
her
that the cutest
tag.
name of all time?
Mini Ears and Butterbeers.
Because it is.
Yes. So please check out the Midwest's own Emily at Magical Mouse Travel. So about 1 week ago today, something crazy happened. The news broke, Ash. The news broke that Mr. Bob Chapek would be deposed as the CEO of the Walt Disney Company and replaced by who?
Bob Iger.
Bob Iger coming back. So this was crazy. Like, this broke, I think, maybe late Saturday night, and then Sunday it kind of started coming out more and more. I've listened to, other podcasts, and I've read a bunch of articles on this. So we're going to, the Wall Street Journal has a great article. The Disney Dish podcast has great coverage of this as well. Jim Hill is the contributor to the Disney Dish. It's his podcast along with Len Testa. And Jim is a journalist, a theme park journalist. He's been doing it for his whole life. So some of the stuff we're going to talk about is stuff I heard from there, also stuff that can be read online. And then we're going to give our views on things. But pretty much, in dramatic fashion, according to Disney Dish, Bob Chapek was at SoFi Stadium, or I think that's where it was. Or I don't know, was that SoFi? I can't remember. It was in LA for the Elton John concert that Disney Plus was putting on. The farewell tour or whatever.
Elton John, by the way, I've seen him in concert. Excellent.
Yes, Ash has
too late.
It's too late. It's over.
So
yeah, right.
You missed
He'll
it.
do something again. He can't stop. He says he's leaving and then he doesn't. So who knows?
They all do that.
Yeah. So
Brady.
Farewell tour. Right. Tom Brady as well. So apparently he was at the concert.
I don't know this.
He was at the concert and got the news. Was about to walk out and announce Elton John and the concert and do a greeting.
Oh man.
And got the news.
Man, I don't support that.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad.
Got the news via an email or a text message or something?
That's just wrong. I don't agree with it. I'm not a big fan of the guy, but I mean, you could. I don't know. I think that's an in-person type of situation.
So
maybe he already had a heads up.
I think maybe he did. I think so. To kind of give you guys a little bit of a background, so Bob Chapek was around in the Disney company for 20 years or something, and he worked his way through, and he was then head of Disney Parks and Consumer Products, which they called it back then, Parks, Experiences, and Consumer Products. So he was, head of the parks for a few years. Usually, when you're head of the parks for a few years, then the next thing in line is CEO. That's not always the case, but usually, since the parks is the flagship product, next to the movies for the Disney company, that's usually the succession. But from what I hear from years past is that Chapek had his crew of people and Iger had his. And there was sort of a splintering between these groups, right?
I'm surprised that if that were the case.
There's Team Chapek and Team Iger.
Yeah.
And remember, Bob said he was going to leave the Disney company 4 other times. He was going to retire, then he wouldn't.
Bob Iger.
Yes. So I think a little bit of it is Iger not being able to really let go, and then people, him trying to getting a successor in line to keep the. I mean, you can't deny Iger's reign as CEO was ultra successful for the Disney company, very successful. So, it was.
Yes.
A lot of high-profile purchases.
Depends on how you define successful.
Yes.
But yes. Overall, I think that's how people feel about
it. The view is that he was...
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
All right. So record profits and things like that. I mean, there were things that were happening that were very good. Part of that was Chapek as well. You can't deny that he did have something to do with that.
What is the year that Chapek took over?
2020.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So he took over right, as everything was sort of happening with the pandemic. And he was dealt a rough hand. I mean, that's a rough situation to have to deal with.
I'll go more into detail on that later, but I think so too.
So apparently, so this kind of was brewing. Chapek was never well liked, and he was on record saying about the dedicated fans of Disney, like you and I, he was on record saying that he didn't really care about the people that return to Walt Disney World.
Yeah, that's what I was going to look up.
He said that we care more about the 80% that come only once. So that's what we should be worried about, not the dedicated fans. So Chapek in the Disney fan community was always viewed negatively, because here you have your most loyal fans, the people who have given a lot of their hard-earned money to the Disney company, in exchange for, great experiences. But then you have someone who is in line to be CEO saying that basically we're suckers, and like 20% of their profits is, guaranteed because of us.
Well, that, yes. I think that the comment is layered in that, right? There's that element of it, and the other part is basically, I don't have to cater to you, because, what really matters is the people that are here once, and if they unfortunately don't have the best experience, guess what? It doesn't matter.
Right. And
which is like a really sad thing to say.
Which is a cold, shrewd, and I think that right there, I think, is the essence of
Chapek.
Of the Iger versus Chapek, right? Because Iger, you never got that feeling.
Well, yes. I want to say one more thing when you're done.
He never got that feeling. Iger, although things definitely changed under him as well in the parks, but it never. So here's the thing, right? The CEO job is a lot of people have kind of, said it. I think it's a very smart way to put it. The Disney CEO job is just as political as it is business. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got to be liked. You've got to be well liked. You've got to handle personalities.
I think that we've experienced that all in our country as of recent.
Right.
That's something that people
value.
Yeah.
They like their leader, and they feel safe under their leader and respected. And I just feel like Iger has a charisma, right, and bravura that Chapek lacks. Chapek is a businessman from Indiana. He's not a Disney fan.
Here's what I'm going to say, though. I'm going to say that while what I think he said was terrible, we're going off just that one example of not having to appease the people that go there all the time, that have dedicated their vacations for life, basically, to Disney and are, lifetime fans, is that there's no way, Bob Iger also knows that's the truth. He knows the statistics and percentages of that and uses it to make decisions. He just doesn't talk about it in the open.
He's
and
a
make
politician.
People feel...
Yes.
Now, by all means, and I don't know if we're going to get into this later or now, if I look at all the changes that have been made since you and I, Jim and I, JB and I, got together 10 years ago, and from there, I had only been to Disney once before we met. From then till now, I mean, we've been to the park so many times, and arguably for me, the biggest changes that I dislike the most happened under Iger in terms of the pricing and the ticketing and the way that whole structure changed. Those changes bother me more. Like when we would go to extra magic hours and half the park was blocked off or more. That happened in 2019.
It's interesting that people could argue, though, that Chapek was in charge of the parks at that time.
Okay, see, but doesn't that fall
you know
under,
what I mean?
I guess that's true, right? I didn't think about that.
So you could argue that,
but all of those changes, Chapek. And they have already started, Bob Iger has already done a few things. One of them is they're taking away the park reservations, which I know everyone's very excited about. To me, I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think it does much, though. I mean, it's sort of like one of those things that seems like a big deal, but it's really not going to change much for you when you're there. Yes, you could go into a park.
And the park hopper thing is going to change,
sure,
too.
That, to me... I get it. It matters. It matters maybe the least to me out of everything else because it's not really a value. It is, but there's so many other things to me that are so much more value that, have already been taken away that I would prefer to have back or changed in some way. Besides that, I think that's one of those things like, oh, I'm going to make changes.
Right.
The reality is they were using that probably to figure out how things need to be staffed, and I'm sure the staffing was... Now, this might be more of something that helps on the staffing side, because that's all part of it. I know that the staff's kind of disgruntled at the moment. We've heard rumblings of that, and I think you can kind of notice it when you're in the parks. I think Bob Chapek used that information to staff the parks as low as possible. I think Iger will probably not do that. I think that he will try and get it staffed up so that things are running a little bit better. And I'm hoping that rides aren't breaking down as much and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh,
that's all part of the puzzle too, because right now rides are breaking down, and it's because the maintenance crews they're pushing that back down too. So I'm hoping that those changes will be made. And I think you got to start from the inside out, and he has a lot of work to do. But he was a big part of what happened too. I think people like to blame Chapek, and I think that I don't like Chapek. I don't think he was the right guy for the job. But I do think it's wrong to say, like, Iger's amazing and Chapek's a piece of crap. Like, there is a little bit more overlap than people give credit for.
Right.
I do think that Bob Iger...
And there are some major issues, right, with the Disney company in general still that I think Chapek just could not handle.
Yes.
Which I actually empathize with him, because I think he probably was
in a really tough position.
Yeah, in a tough position because of, sadly, there are certain climates within our country right now that are really extreme. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some of that extreme mentality has permeated, the highest echelons of the Walt Disney Company as well. Meaning that, there's just, we won't have to get into the weeds in that, but I just don't think Chapek was equipped to handle that. Mm-hmm. I think it's, I think part of it is some of those people are probably just completely unreasonable. But, at the end of the day, what happened, always, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what distraction, and this is something you need to think about for life in general. What is distraction? Well, at the end of the day, the quarterly earnings report was terrible for the Walt Disney Company. Disney Plus was a $1.5 billion loss.
Well, right, and I want to say, you just said it when you said it, but the thing to note here is that this has nothing to do, we're talking about things that happen in the parks. This was Disney Plus. This has nothing to do with the parks. Whether you're upset with the parks or not, they're making more money in the parks right now than they have maybe ever per person.
Right.
And the parks are full. So, while I want to see changes in there, I'm willing to bet that's not going to be his focus. His focus is going to be the media side.
Right.
And he is going to make changes to the park, things that are like, yes, park reservations are going away, things that sound great but maybe have little effect when they seem.
Right.
But yeah, the focus is going to be the movies and Disney Plus and media.
And I think, so here's so the park pass, so let's just stick to that. So the $1.5 billion loss, which, Chapek tried to sort of gloss over, okay, that was probably the worst earnings report that Disney has had in a very, very long time. So that was a huge catalyst for the CFO, Susan Arnold, to try and get Bob Iger back. And apparently Chapek could have laid the blame of the financials on Susan Arnold, the CFO. So I'm sure she had some reason to be like, I got to get Chapek out of here. Because apparently Chapek was not shy to put the blame on somebody else. I guess he had done that a couple times and it left a bad taste in other people's mouths. Mm-hmm. You're the CEO, just take it. for your team.
I think when you're
Shield
in that position,
your team.
That's sort of what you're supposed to do.
Right. So, and then other things, I guess, that had happened, and I guess Iger, according to the Wall Street Journal, Iger would be, like at dinners with people he's known forever in Hollywood and other people, and saying that he's had so many conversations with other creative heads at Disney saying that their budgets got cut. And, like, we're talking budgets for Imagineering, budgets for the movie element, and that a lot of the money would go towards Disney Plus and the content there, which I understand. You can need content for streaming, but all the streaming services are getting their butt whipped right now. But it needs to
be good content.
People are not buying the streaming services. They're dropping. And Disney Plus is dropping because of, a lot of reasons, but a lot of reasons that happened and were debuting while Chapek was in as head. And just now, you guys, Strange World flopped miserably.
And you saw it
at the box office. I took Harrison on Tuesday. It was like $5. Went and saw it. It was just okay, and that's why. Like, the characters there was nobody that was compelling. The most compelling character was Splat. This little, like, didn't even talk. It was like this amoeba type character. Like, it was just
well, you know what? I think that's the thing. Good. They're not doing that, and I know they're trying to. I'm not going to get into the political stuff. Clearly,
no, it's not. This wasn't.
You could do whatever you want with characters and stuff like that, but what they're not doing is creating compelling characters and creating like a good plot. Right. You want to put other stuff in there, fine, but like that shouldn't be the main focus. And I think most people would agree. The main focus should be the story. What's the story? What are the characters? Why do I care about them?
Strange
Don't
World.
Don't just like put a bunch of stuff in there and like not try.
Let me tell you right now. There's a big disconnect between what critics are thinking on platforms and what people want to see.
Yeah, I don't care what character.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm saying that like maybe Disney's catering too much to this small critic circle online to get a good tomato meter, and then they release movies that just aren't that
I mean, I'm trying to think of the last good, the last good run Disney had, and I feel like it was years ago.
Harrison said he gave the movie Strange World 3 stars.
Which Harrison's a notoriously high...
Right, he
rates things high.
We saw Lyle Crocodile, he loved it, 5 stars.
What did you think about that? You thought
definitely
it was pretty
better.
Good. Yeah.
Yes, Lyle Crocodile is definitely better than Strange World. Mm-hmm. Strange World is cool. There's a cool twist to it, and it has a good message. But like, everything is bland. It's bland. Yeah. That's all. Like, no, I mean, right? Generic.
Here's the thing. I mean, we all have different tastes and stuff like that. So I'm not gonna sit there and say like this movie's bad, this movie's bad. But I mean, a lot of the movies that are more okay. Like I watched Soul when that came out a few years ago. And I mean, I was like, okay, this is okay. But I mean, that's what I was saying about it.
It didn't, wow you. Yeah.
No, I almost feel like sometimes, almost like Inside Out was the first, it was a lot like Inside Out. And I know a lot of people loved Inside Out. To me, though, and this is just my personal opinion, I think teaching kids about their feelings and how to, manage them and stuff like that's important, definitely. But I think sometimes there's a limit of like, all right, how long can we... sit here and unpack this and like really just be super down in the dumps. Like there's some point where we don't need to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and like lose ourselves in the reality. It was like, like when you watch Inception and there's like all these different layers of like you're kind of losing yourself in the plot and you're like, all right, what's really going on here? I mean, the last good movie I watched from Disney was maybe like really good was Coco, probably.
Right. And I think, so the movie element is lacking considerably, and it's just because they're just like you didn't leave Strange World going, oh man, everybody's got to see that. It was just okay.
I mean, I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for Inside Out. A lot of people liked it. I wasn't a huge fan. I thought it was. I mean, it was a better plot movie. That one was okay.
I thought Inside Out was way too long.
Way too long. Yeah.
And it just too long.
It was kind of like a downer.
Cut it, and I don't want to be depressed.
The girl is sad because she moved. Like I understand, and we're learning that memories can be happy and sad. Like it was kind of like, all right,
Now, a lot of that, yes.
Gotta spend a whole movie on that?
I mean, we're getting into a little bit in the weeds into the content element, but it does give you a reason, you guys, why people aren't renewing their Disney Plus subscriptions. Because it's not compelling to them. And guess what? Most of the people already own The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. And
Tangled,
and Frozen, these amazing
Moana,
movies
those
that,
were good.
the home video department for years and years, with the vault and everything, made it so you wanted to make sure you bought those movies.
Well, listen, and I just want to say, too, whether you enjoyed some of the last few ones that came out, the general consensus, I think, across the board, though, is in general, take all the movies from the last however many years, and mostly your general reaction is...
Yeah.
Like, even if there was a few that you kind of
like Encanto was a bigger hit than Strange World because it was more, it was a musical. It was just, it's just Disney does those really well.
I still wasn't wowed by that one.
And that's another movie that, yes, I think they need to go back to the drawing board.
Now, there were some good things about that. I mean, I liked the characters in that movie. There were some good characters, but, I mean, still, I wasn't walking out like I did with Moana.
Right.
It was still all right. I was trying, I wanted to like it more than I did, and I know everyone loved it. Everyone loved the music. I thought the music was just sort of
Marvel 2 is suffering a little bit as well. Black Panther came out, huge hit, the sequel. So that's doing well, but that's like a standalone, and it's Black Panther without Black Panther. It's because they've acknowledged his passing,
right?
Which is fine, but at the same time, Disney is in an interesting spot. Right now, without the parks, that company is in big trouble.
Well, and I mean, the important thing to note, though, too, is, Disney's gone through things like this in the past. There was a time in the 80s where the movies were
early 80s were not good.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then they got better, so I don't expect them to be hit after hit after hit after hit. But I was kind of hoping for a few more of them to be better than they were.
It ebbs and flows, right? Yeah. It ebbs and flows. I would say, arguably, after, the Lion King thing started, the animated films started kind of declining a little bit.
And then it kind of came back.
And then it came back with Frozen.
No, I think Tangled was better.
You're right. Tangled first, and then Frozen, like the 3D animated ones. So but anyway, we're content-wise, Chapek has, the things are not good on the Disney Plus front. Big loss. Company took a major hit. And a lot of the budgets, like I said, were cut in other places.
Yeah.
And Iger was complaining to everybody at meals, saying they're ruining the soul of the company.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what a political type, well-liked CEO would say, right? Mm-hmm. Ruining the soul of the company. What's the soul of the company? Creativity and imagination. But Iger knew that. Chapek saw things differently. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that that's not a valuable part. Doesn't mean that Chapek did awful things all the time. Of course not. He got us through. He did get us through a very tenuous part of the shutdown and everything. He did lead through that time, and that's a really tough position to be in. It really is. So you have to give him a little bit of leeway there. That's tough. Another thing that makes him look bad in the Wall Street Journal article is that he wanted to lay people off before the CARES Act was announced, or was still being debated, and he wanted to lay people off right away. Iger was like, let's just wait until they're done, and then we can lay people off.
I know,
with protections.
It's
all kind of fluff.
I think it's easy to say that Iger is better, and look at what a nice guy to think something like that. But I also think, put yourself in that position. Most people are not in that position, and he was in uncharted territory with the parks being literally closed,
which is the number one profit leader.
It would be easy to say, oh, I would wait. I wouldn't. But the reality is, when you're making decisions that affect that many people, it's not as easy as it looks.
Right, and then so Chapek also here's the how fast things can change in the market, right? So Disney Plus was basically a lifesaver for Disney when everything locked down, because it launched right before. And then everything locked down, and Disney Plus was like, everybody was buying Disney Plus because they were stuck inside and at home, and they're like, oh, cool, The Mandalorian. Like, let's check out The Mandalorian and Disney Plus, all these things on Disney. Oh, my gosh. And, like...
What were they like?
Oh, my gosh. And so Disney Plus became this huge boon for the company. Mm-hmm. But now that things have opened back up, people don't want to sit inside. They want to be out.
Crap.
They want to go to the theater.
Things.
They want to go to the movies. Mm-hmm. And now Disney's done still pretty well at the movie theater. Like they're still $3 billion or something this year or something they've done. So they've still done well at the movie theater. But it is thanks to mostly Marvel. So it is like a catch-22, right? So if you're a numbers-oriented guy like Chapek, you're saying, well, let's invest more in something that was working for us, which is Disney Plus, and cut a bunch of other things. It's just a hard, because the company's so big and has so many different things happening. So... I
don't think he's as evil as people paint him out to me. Don't get me wrong. I don't like the guy, and I was very happy to hear the news because I don't think he's the right person for the job. As you said, I think that there's a place for people like him in the company if he isn't turning people against other people. I think being a numbers person and being more driven in that way is an important part of the puzzle. But saying things like he said and making those decisions... I don't have to worry about you guys because it doesn't even matter. Like, that's just not what a leader does.
And then according to the Disney Dish podcast, there was Chapek was sort of going to use Disney Cruise Line as his big splash, I guess there's a ship that they're going to get for pretty cheap, that they're going to add to the fleet another ship. There's already 2 on the way.
Why don't people say Disney Cruise Line right now is the thing and it's top tier? People are having really great experiences.
People are basically saying that Disney Cruise Line is the ultimate Disney experience. That if you want to know what it was like to be in the parks in the 90s and 80s, that this is what it was like. This level of service and cast members were great, and it was just a better experience overall.
I just want to say one thing, though. If we're going to say, before in the podcast when I was saying all the things about the parks, and you're technically he was the head of parks then.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is now we're using
Chapek
as an excuse for tomorrow. Yeah. Well, we can't do that. I mean, at the time, you would have to think that if Chapek was making these decisions, Bob Iger was okay with it.
Right.
So you have to sort of pick a lane there. You can't say, "Oh, now Josh Murrow will be able to do all these things because Bob is gone."
Remember, these are boards. So these are run by a board of directors and stockholders. So it's some of these things are voted on by the board, some are voted on via the So there are there's it's not as clear cut as we try to make out to be. This is Chapek's decision or this was Iger's decision. So there are. Some nuances and details that we're skimming over. But at the end of the day, Chapek is gone. Iger's back. Park pass reservations, apparently, which were going to be Chapek's announcement. Apparently, this was something that was already talked about. And Chapek was willing to bend on. Get rid of the park. Because they basically were... Because, you guys... People were so upset about the park pass reservations. There was literally protests at the Disney gates at Disney World. Literally protests that they hushed up.
Protest about it.
They hushed it up.
I don't understand.
Yeah, they were protesting it. And then of course Chapek got into all sorts of trouble with the government of Florida and the culture war that is currently going on in America, which is just a whole heck of a lot of distraction. As far as the parents' education bill in Florida, we won't go into the weeds.
No.
Although I to me, it's I don't understand. I feel but see, here's an example of where some people it's never enough, and some people it's enough. Some people can't see that it's never. They have to. It's some people. There's nothing you can do to talk to them to talk them off the ledge. If I were the CEO of the company, all you have to say is guys, we've always been a welcoming, company
because
for
Disney
all.
always
Because
has
they,
been.
yes, like they
I mean,
legit.
that's our opinion. But I really honestly believe that.
Right, and there's, you
I
know.
feel like I see it.
We
in the
went,
parks.
you and I were there during gay days
Yeah, with my parents.
with your parents. You know,
was
so.
fine. Everything was.
There's not. So, like, we have a company that's always been welcoming to the, you know, all the communities, various communities, you know, so it's just like all Chapek had to do was say that. Instead, he got himself into this horrible mess, you know, so.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like it was Disney's place to say something. I mean, that's just my personal
Well, that's
opinion.
what he said. And then
I mean,
people in the company
I kind
flipped
of
out.
agree. I
Right.
mean, because of, you know, not because you know, like you said, it's because of what you said, that I think they've always been inclusive. They've always, you know,
Yes.
I feel like that's always been a very clear message
Yes.
with them.
Yes.
And like you said, we were there during gay days and had a great time.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm not sure that, you know, yeah, he kind of dug himself a hole
He just
there.
he said it, and you know, he got attacked by the culture. He got totally caught up, and then he came back and then said something else, and it's just like, you're at that point, you're not gonna win no matter what. And I would have just come out and said, what are you talking about? We are an inclusive company, blah blah blah. Always, we've always done this for years. We've had this
And that,
celebration.
in quotes, is taking a stand. Like, I don't think that
Right.
every issue requires. Again,
And
it's gonna
Iger
come out
during
yeah.
right, Iger during that tweeted, I agree with the president on this. Like, you know, he just like handled it differently, you know, whereas like, you know, I think it was like an MSNBC interview or something that Chapek got caught up in, or CNBC, I don't know what it was, and he just blew it, you know.
Yeah,
so
and no matter which side you fall on of any of that, I think that, you know,
Disney company's been, you can't deny, they've been inclusive
No.
and great about, you know, accommodation.
I mean, you can go there
everything.
and get basically any accommodation.
Right.
Things that you couldn't get anywhere else, and I think they really
Accommodation,
strive.
celebration of different cultures and
Everything.
communities.
I mean, it doesn't mean there's no room for progress in any area ever
Right.
for anything. I think that's always the case. So there's always room for progress and learning and moving forward. But I think if anyone's a great example of that, it's Disney.
Right. So, you know, and yes. So I think it just was a series of fumbles and issues and problems.
I mean, this is something that never would have come up 10 years ago either. You know, it's just
Right. We're in a world now
it's
where
different
it's
right
like just, you know, we want to trap people and then make tons of money off clicks over an article about the CEO at the Disney and, you know, DeSantis versus Disney and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's just, it's crazy, you guys. I mean, we've got to wake up. And I think a lot of us in the country are very sensitive to this culture war and are, you know, see many sides of things that are measured and rational. And it's just like, for some reason, being measured and rational is being used against you. So, but anyway, so that's besides the point. At the end of the day, Chapek is gone. Park pass reservations are going to change. Like I said, that was going to be announced by him, but he's gone.
So now Iger gets to take credit
And
for that.
yeah,
and
Iger
everyone will
gets
give
to-
him credit. They'll be like, "Oh,
Right.
look what he's already doing."
Right. And the park hopper is also changing, apparently. It's a rumor. This is all rumor. But that there'll be no park hopper restrictions anymore.
Which
the
is
2
a
p.m.
big, that
thing.
is a big deal for people. I understand that that's a big deal.
Yeah, the park hopper thing, for you and I, Ash, like, it never mattered. Like, we would always go to a park during the day and then go to a park at night.
And it really doesn't bother me that we go to the same park that we went to earlier or not. So
Right,
to me, it
right.
doesn't matter. I understand for everyone else in the way you vacation.
Well,
it
yes,
matters.
if you've had only got a couple days and you want to go to all 4 parks, you know, you could do that with the park hopper.
My issue is more with like the way park hoppers and all that stuff, the tier pricing of all that change, and that was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago.
Right, the fact that the no expiration,
That
believe it
was
or
all
not, you guys,
under Iger.
yeah, many years ago, you would buy a ticket, a park hopper, or Disney tickets to the parks, theme park tickets, and they would never expire.
JB used to go to the Disney store and buy a 10-day park ticket. It was like $300,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
It's like $30 a day, and you would use those tickets over multiple trips.
Yes.
Which to me, if we're going based off of what the statistics show and what Chapek said about this many, this small percentage of people are the ones that come back, 15 to 20%, in attendance each day are people that come all the time. You should let them have that benefit.
Right.
Versus forcing everyone to buy the non-expiration tiered pricing tickets depending on the season, which most people don't even understand, actually promote more people to come when it's more expensive. And in your mind, you might think that's backwards, but it's actually, psychological. That's what happens.
Yes.
The fall has become the most busy because the tickets are the most expensive.
It's crazy.
Outside of Christmas and stuff like that, which are, again, the most expensive, and the parks are always sold out.
Right. So, and then, Ash, now here's the other thing. Iger's current term lasts for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Not very long.
I'm going to ask you, in your estimation, what things will change? And what can Iger effectively do in 2 years?
No, to be honest, I don't expect much to change for the parks. I don't know if Magical Express and all that will come back. I think his focus will be media, like we talked about, and maybe we'll have some sort of.
He is a media guy. He's an ABC exec.
In the type of content being put out, meaning maybe quality over quantity. People don't. During the pandemic, I think it mattered that there was a lot to watch. Now I think it matters that what there is to watch.
Right.
It just like the movies. We need a little shift in the movies. Something with a plot.
Well, Strange World was basically Journey to the Center of the Earth, sort of.
I don't know. We just need some Disney magic in the movies. It's slacking a little bit. I don't know exactly how to put my finger on it, but what can he do in 2 years? It takes a long time to make a movie. I don't know. I think he needs to up the budget for the things that matter. Bring the soul back of the company. Work on the cast members. Work on Imagineering, and redistribute money where it needs to go. I think the parks are going to stay somewhat the same during that time. So the reality is they're making more per person than
GD Plus will probably stay.
I think it probably will. I would like to see some sort of convenience, though, factor with that. It'd be nice to not have to set my alarm for 7 a.m. It would be nice to not have to, when we went, we actually were one of the last people that got to buy it ahead of time. Now you can't do that. You have to do
buy
it per
the day of.
I think they need some sort of control on how many people buy it per day. Lots of people reporting that they bought Genie Plus, and the Genie Plus line is actually way longer than the regular line. They need some sort of control over that. That
and the Genie Plus price apparently varies by day.
Right, all that.
And that just Genie Plus, not an an individual lightning lane, which is only reserved for the most popular premier attractions like Flight of Passage, Slinky Dog, Rise of the Resistance, and I think it's still Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, right, over in Magic Kingdom. That's not counting those. That the regular G Plus, which typically costs $15 a day or $14 per day, because of the crowds, I guess, or the demand, it went up to $27 just for G Plus.
More people buy it. Well, what also is getting reported though is that one example was for, I think it was for Slinky Dog, which is an individual lightning lane, I believe. Maybe not.
Right.
That the wait time listed on the app and at the front of the ride was 75 minutes or 95 minutes. So a bunch of people bought the Genie Plus, saying, "Oh, okay, well, look, the ride, the lines are pretty long." Whatever.
Right.
They go actually look, and the line for the lightning lane is way longer, and there was virtually no one in the line for the regular ride, but they're reporting that the line is super long, and cast members were even moving people over to the regular line.
Yeah.
That is just straight up misleading. So I think they need to get a handle on that. I think bringing value back, people don't mind paying a lot of money if there's value. I would,
Nighttime
of course,
parades.
Love to see that Magical Express would come back, but I think it would be even easier if there was a spot when you're making a reservation to say, yes, I want to add this on, even if you're still paying for it, that you don't have to go through mirrors. It would be nice to be able to add it on in your Disney reservation.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it outside of that. I also think Genie Plus is just too hit or miss. Like, we had a really great experience, but there's no way of knowing if we would the next time.
But we also were super on top of it.
Well, we were, but you know what I would do?
Should we have to be?
I would rather go back to FastPass Plus and just have it be a paid option, though. Like an add-on.
Yeah.
So that way, if you are not, like, you know, if you live there and you still want to be able to get Fast Passes, they sell out so many per day, FastPass Plus.
Yeah.
And you get 3 rides.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, but I also think, you know, sometimes it's easy for me to say because we don't live there. I don't know how often we should cater to the locals because they live there. I think that maybe for them it could be an add-on, but if you're staying in the Disney parks, like the park resorts,
I think there's
you
still
should get it
annual.
For free.
There's still annual pass holder restrictions, I guess, that were put in place that aren't going to be changed at this point.
Well, I agree with that because look at California. They cannot get that under control, and that's starting to be like there's a lot of people that move to Florida to be local to Disney World. And we don't want the same thing to happen.
Right. So they have an interesting problem, by being a victim of their own success in some ways. But so it's interesting, you guys. The turmoil, the drama. Chapek is obviously under a gag order and was paid $20 million to leave. So, that's a pretty good deal. $20 million.
I'll take that,
just don't say anything, Bob. All right, thanks. And thanks for your service. See you later. That's basically what happened. So, I think the future, initially, I'll be honest with you, I was happy. Emotionally, I felt happy when I saw that Bob Iger was back. So we'll see what happens. Like you said, we just went over it. How much will effectively change?
2 years
in a couple of years? I don't know.
I think he's there to get morale back up and get things kind of put in order. Kind of restructure things, get everyone on the same page, and then find a replacement. Yeah. That has the same values.
Right. And I think, people, hopefully things will get better. The content will be better. And, what I hope is that, we can... Maybe it's just because it was a dark period in world history going through this pandemic that Disney could not really come out of it unscathed. And they didn't. No. They got beat up pretty good by not only the culture war, the pandemic, all this other stuff.
I think Disney's probably pretty happy that Chapek was the one in charge because he was a pretty good person to blame everything on. I mean, ultimately, you can't have someone that's the CEO that you can't even have come out. Like, what was it, the D23 thing or whatever?
They didn't even have him come out. They booed him. He got booed. He got absolutely...
But then something else, they didn't even have him go out.
Right, then he was going to come out and he didn't. That's not good. You can't do that.
But it kind of worked out for them. They could be like, oh, this is all Chapek's fault. We're going to get rid of him. Yeah, so we'll see what changes, what doesn't change, ladies and gentlemen. Kids, families, they still want to go to the Disney parks and have a wonderful time. Everything's full. Things are booked.
Not so sure about them wanting to watch the content they put out because Disney Plus is losing subscribers and the movies are flopping. So, at least the Disney animated ones, like the last one, Strange World. So we'll see. This is a tenuous time, but hopefully, keep moving forward, as Walt always said. Right, so keep moving forward.
Indeed.
And the future is bright, ladies and gentlemen. We are ultimately optimists, and why we have a Disney Parks podcast, because to us it represents optimism, dreams, hope, and a bright future. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to, please reach out to us at magicinthemidwestpodcast@gmail.com. Or Magic in the Midwest Podcast on Instagram, and our other places, Facebook. Please reach out to us with your thoughts, questions, whatnot. So that would be really good. Also, ladies and gentlemen, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Like and subscribe. We would love to hear from you. and get your reviews. Also, Emily over at Magical Mouse Travel. Please check out Emily. All right, ladies and gentlemen, from the Midwest. See you later.